race. For decades, the human race has fantasized about touching the red soil of Mars, but priorities shifted.
The objective for NASA has shifted from tourism to residence, as we go there to remain permanently.
This commitment involves the United States government, NASA, and dozens of global allies signing this colossal blueprint.
If this ambitious schedule holds together, we are witnessing the dawn of an era far grander now. It involves much more than simply putting boots on the ground, because touching down is undeniably hard. Yet that is not the ultimate hurdle, because we are venturing into the unknown phases of history.
The subsequent phase is completely novel in human history, because we must construct a whole new civilization. We require a permanent settlement, essentially a functioning town on an alien sphere situated very far away.
This alien sphere is situated 225 million kilometers away from our home Earth.
While uncertainty clouds the specifics of execution,
We possess some radically innovative strategies for surviving the planet.
We must address why construction on Mars presents difficulties exponentially greater than our previous lunar endeavors did.
the moon is a 3-day trip, while Mars takes months, meaning supply chains simply do not exist.
This could mean a wait of 2 years. And furthermore, the Martian atmosphere is hostile in ways.
Global dust storms can swallow the planet for weeks, blocking the sun and dropping temperatures extremely low.
Temperatures drop to -80 degrees Celsius, and the air is mostly carbon dioxide thin, like vacuums.
It is thick enough to generate weather that shreds machinery. Then you must consider the massive void.
A round-trip vessel will clock nearly 2 billion kilometers, which is over 1,000 times farther.
That is over 1,000 times the distance covered by Artemis missions, so this is not merely.
Yet NASA remains resolute in its long-term foresight through the Artemis initiatives and the design architecture.
Before discussing construction methods, we must determine the location, because Mars is vast, possessing a massive landmass.
It possesses a landmass roughly allows to all of Earth's continents combined, so selecting the perfect site.
Selecting the perfect site is not just logistical. It is a matter of life and death now.
NASA is focusing on mid-latitude zones, and specifically areas like Arcadia Planitia and the famous Jezero crater.
You need solar exposure for power at least seasonally, and you require level ground for landing cargo.
You require level ground for landing heavy cargo haulers that are loaded with habitats and vital supplies.
Crucially, you need access to subsurface glaciers, because water is the currency of survival for everyone there.
It is needed for hydration farming, oxygen generation, and creating methalox fuel for the return trip home.
Scouts like Insight and Perseverance have blazed the trail, confirming that water ice lies beneath the regolith.
This is where the settlement will stand a convergence of science and will on a frozen landscape.
However, arrival is the initial nightmare, because Martian landings have humiliated the best aerospace engineers in history.
The dilemma is the atmosphere thick enough to burn you up, yet too thin for parachute stopping. You enter at 7 kilometers per second and must hit 0 in minutes without impacting the surface.
NASA answers this with supersonic retropulsion as the ship tears through the sky, blasting engines against flow.
It generates controlled turbulence to break the descent, while SpaceX is refining this technique with the Starship. It is non-negotiable for the heavy payloads a city requires, but surviving the drop is step 1.
Once down, you face the dust, which is a massive threat. Fine, powdery, and electrostatically charged stuff.
It sticks to everything from solar arrays to visors, and also contains toxic perchlorates, making it hazardous.
Therefore, before habitats rise, we must pave the ground to stop dust tornadoes caused by rocket exhaust.
Rocket exhaust on raw soil kicks up debris clouds that travel for kilometers, damaging sensitive gear nearby. The solution mirrors lunar plans, so the REDWorks project investigates 3D printing infrastructure using Martian soil. By using microwaves or lasers to melt the dirt, we can sinter it into solid glass pavement. This allows us to build roads without shipping concrete from Earth, although it is slow and intensive. Robots will likely land years early to sinter landing pads and foundations before any humans arrive there. By the time humans arrive, and the civil engineering will be done, ensuring a floor exists upon arrival.
With a foothold established, we must address mobility, because the base will be a sprawling network grid.
We need a ride, so enter the Mars Rover vehicle, or MRV, which is a pressurized home.
Unlike the open-top Apollo buggies, the MRV is a sealed, life-sustaining capsule for long exploration.
They can drive to a research site work and return, never exposing themselves to the deadly vacuum.
Likely powered by hydrogen cells or micronuclear reactors, and these rovers can survive the long nights easily.
However, the MRV is not just for people, because NASA is partnering with firms like Icon now. They build autonomous construction droids that will erect buildings, haul cargo, and fix hardware without human hands.
The heavy lifting will be automated, freeing astronauts for science, signaling a shift in exploration philosophy today.
Now consider the living quarters, because a Martian home is not a tent, it is a vessel.
It is a pressure vessel fighting extreme cold radiation and storms while keeping people alive for years.
NASA's strategy has two phases, and initially, crews will occupy pre-deployed temporary structures like Mars Dune.
A top contender is Mars Dune Alpha, a 3D printed design by Icon using contour crafting.
It layers a regolith-like mixture to build walls and roofs, utilizing local resources, slashing launch weight.
Designed for 4 people over 500 days, and it features cabins, a medical bay, and a gym.
But for a permanent city, we need structures that endure decades, using advanced masonry and sulfur concrete. Interestingly, sulfur concrete requires no water to cure, which is a massive perk on a dry world.
Alternatively, we could use the planet itself, because Mars is honeycombed with lava tubes, giant subterranean caverns.
Some are large enough to house skyscrapers, so NASA is evaluating inflating habitats inside these natural bunkers.
Of course, architecture is useless if we suffocate, so we need oxygen, water, and food from stones.
Start with air, because the atmosphere is 95% carbon dioxide, so we cannot breathe it.
We cannot breathe it, but we can hack it, using the MOXIE experiment to crack carbon dioxide.
About the size of a car battery, MOXIE heats the gas using electrolysis to strip the carbon.
Next is water, which Mars hides underground as ice, and the SWIM project has located shallow deposits.
Robotic drills must bore through permafrost and melt the ice and pump it up to give us hydration.
Water also unlocks agriculture, and so NASA has grown crops on the ISS for years, scaling this up. On Mars, we will scale this up using hydroponics and aeroponics, growing plants in nutrient mists there.
Inside controlled modules, plants will recycle waste, purify water, and scrub CO2, creating a biological support loop.
For human safety, we cannot rely solely on the sun, so the solution is nuclear fission reactors.
These trash can-sized units churn out kilowatts of power for years, ignoring dust and darkness completely.
So there it stands, a gateway to the cosmos, creating a backup drive for civilization on Mars.
Mars is the only other accessible place where life might have once sparked, so studying it answers.
The moon was practice. Mars is the proving ground, and from there we reach Jupiter's moons beyond. This is the birth of an interplanetary species, but we have only scratched the surface of plans.
The reality is that survival goes deeper than bricks, because Mars is unforgiving, and radiation kills silently.
Earth has a magnetic shield, but Mars has neither, because its core died billions of years ago.
Astronauts face two invisible enemies: galactic cosmic rays from deep space and solar energetic particles from flares.
NASA defense is layered, so habitats will use mass shielding thick regolith walls or underground lava tubes.
The objective is to keep career exposure below safety limits, ensuring the crew survives the long tour. However, we must confront a disturbing reality because we lack comprehensive data regarding the long-term impact.
We lack data on chronic low-dose radiation that Martian crews will inevitably absorb during the mission.
Our current knowledge is largely derived from survivors of atomic detonations and nuclear reactor accidents involving exposure.
While NASA Human Research Program is striving to bridge these gaps, and we cannot fully resolve these uncertainties.
We essentially need to send people there to find out, and then we face the psychological gauntlet now.
This psychological gauntlet might prove even more formidable than the biological threats. Picture yourself locked in modules.
Picture yourself locked in a compact module with 3 colleagues for 30 months, unable to step outside.
You cannot step outside without donning a life support suit, and you cannot crack a window, ever.
From breakfast to laboratory work to sleep, it occurs in that same box with the same faces.
If a feud erupts, there is no exit because you are trapped until the planets realign again.
This realignment takes years, so psychologists classify this nightmare as ICE, isolation, confinement, and extreme conditions today.
This trifecta of stressors creates a pressure cooker that human evolution has not prepared us for mentally. The mental fallout can be devastating, so NASA has analyzed this dynamic since the dawn of spaceflight.
Astronauts spend 6 months on the International Space Station, providing a baseline, yet that experience is distinct. That experience is fundamentally distinct from a Mars expedition, because on the station, the crew sees Earth.
They can gaze at Earth and text family in real time, knowing a lifeboat is docked outside.
It is ready to drop them home in hours if disaster strikes, but Mars crews lack comfort.
Earth will be a pale blue speck, indistinguishable from distant stars, and conversations will lag by minutes.
Conversations lag by 3 to 22 minutes each way, killing real-time dialogue almost instantly today.
Video chats with spouses will feel like leaving voicemails, and there is absolutely no abort switch available.
Once you commit to the descent, and you remain there until the return window opens to rehearse isolation.
To rehearse for this isolation, NASA runs analog simulations here on Earth, and the most rigorous is HICs. This Hawaii space exploration analog and simulation has crews that live for a year in a habitat there.
They live on the jagged slopes of Mauna Loa, a volcano that mimics the barren Martian terrain. They wear mock pressure suits outside, eat freeze-dried rations, and endure artificial communication delays for science.
The insights from these trials are crucial, as researchers found that minor details have massive effects now.
Details like food variety or customizable sleeping quarters have massive effects on morale and pinpointed red flags. They pinpointed red flags for breakdown, such as social withdrawal, irritability, or shifting sleep cycles among crews. This sparked new protocols, including AI-driven counselors that track mental health and intervene when therapy fails.
But mental prep is useless if the crew starves. Which brings us to the topic of calories.
We mentioned hydroponics, but feeding a colony is far harder than sprouting a few leaves in water. A team of 4 requires roughly 2,000 kilograms of food annually, which is a mountain of lettuce.
Early explorers will eat pre-packaged rations like station crews, but that is unsustainable for a city.
You cannot launch endless cargo rockets just to serve dinner because the cost would be astronomical there.
Thus, NASA is pivoting to regenerative food technologies, which are closed-loop ecosystems, where waste fuels another. Human waste becomes compost, while carbon dioxide exhaled by astronauts is scrubbed by crops and turned back. It is turned into oxygen, and gray water is filtered and recycled. But the hurdle is reliability.
If a harvest fails on Earth, you drive to the supermarket. But on Mars, failure means death. Therefore, NASA is testing redundant agricultural layers, using hydroponics to grow plants in nutrient water for food.
Aeroponics suspends roots in mist, while aquaponics merges fish farming with vegetation, where fish waste feeds crops. The ultimate system will likely blend all three, and we are also exploring alternative proteins like insects.
It is vastly more efficient than raising cattle and provides the density of nutrition astronauts require daily.
Then there is the issue of menu fatigue, because human psychology dictates that repeating meals causes undereating.
Food boredom plagued early missions and remains a threat, and so NASA is collaborating with culinary scientists.
They engineer meals that are shelf-stable yet genuinely satisfying, using spices and textures to boost morale.
It sounds trivial, but a hot, flavorful meal after a brutal day is a critical psychological anchor.
Now consider the unglamorous reality of waste management, because humans produce trash, and you cannot toss it.
There is no landfill, so every gram of waste is matter that was shipped at great cost.
Discarding it is not just wasteful, it is dangerous. So Martian sanitation is actually resource recovery now. Biological waste holds nitrogen, water, and phosphorus, which is gold for farming through composting and sterilization processes.
Mishandling waste could unleash pathogens, so systems must sterilize matter while harvesting its chemical value for use. Regarding mechanical trash, like broken tools, plastic wrap, and scrap, we must innovate to reuse everything there.
On Earth, we recycle or dump it, but on Mars, metals can be melted for printing parts.
Plastics can be reformed, so NASA is developing in-situ manufacturing, essentially miniature factories turning garbage into parts.
If a life support fan snaps, you must print a new one from scrap, or mission ends.
This leads to in-situ resource utilization, which means living off the land, using soil for bricks.
We use ice for water, but ISRU goes further, and the biggest application is creating rocket fuel.
The Mars Ascent Vehicle, the ship that carries the crew home, needs massive amounts of propellant immediately.
Launching that fuel from Earth is economically impossible, so we must make it there using Sabatier process.
It takes Martian carbon dioxide, mixes it with hydrogen, and produces methane and water, which splits into oxygen.
Methane is fuel, while water splits into oxygen and hydrogen, and the oxygen burns the fuel efficiently.
The hydrogen loops back into the reactor, but while the chemistry is simple, the infrastructure is not.
You need power for electrolysis, cryogenic tanks for storage, and pumps to fuel the rocket autonomously there. This factory must run autonomously for years, ensuring the return ship is fully gassed up before leaving. NASA estimated that making fuel for one ascent vehicle requires 40 kilowatts of continuous power for years.
Newer plans fueling larger transport stages might need hundreds of kilowatts, confirming why nuclear kilopower is mandatory.
Solar panels cannot guarantee that output during dust storms. And ISRU also extends to mining iron deposits.
Mars has iron for steel, silicates for glass, and sulfur for concrete, while atmosphere of carbon becomes plastic.
Ideally, a mature base imports only microchips and medicine, manufacturing everything else locally. But we are away.
We are decades away from that, but the basic research is active today. Another silent logistical killer.
Another silent logistical killer is communication, because on Earth connection is instant, but on Mars physics interferes.
Radio waves take minutes to cross the gap, making a simple exchange take up to 40 minutes.
For routine chat, it is annoying, but for emergencies, it is fatal if an astronaut is bleeding.
If an astronaut bleeds, you cannot wait 20 minutes for advice, so NASA builds autonomous medical AI.
They train crew members as field surgeons, who must handle everything from stitches to appendectomies alone there. Instead of video calls, they will send data packets and wait, while AI diagnostics will fill silence.
Connectivity between Martian assets is also complex, as we will have rovers, miners, and habitats spread out.
They must link to each other and to Earth, while current orbiters relay rover data quite well.
A human city generates terabytes of video and telemetry, so we need a dedicated Martian internet constellation.
This constellation of satellites handles traffic, and some proposals suggest laser communications to replace radio boosting bandwidth.
None of this hardware appears by magic, and it must be launched, and reaching Mars demands immense energy.
And you need fleets of them shipping habitats, reactors, and supplies before the crew taxis to runways.
This is where Starship enters the equation, because SpaceX aims to lift 150 tons reusable. By crashing launch costs, we can afford the heavy tonnage a colony demands and uncrewed starships test.
Uncrewed starships could test landings by 2026, delivering cargo and proving the descent tech successfully.
If successful humans follow yet, despite Starship, the trip is perilous, as launch windows open rarely now.
Launch windows open only every 26 months, so miss one, and you wait 2 years again.
This dictates the entire schedule, and NASA is also debating propulsion, because chemical rockets are fuel hungry.
Nuclear thermal propulsion is efficient and fast, but politically controversial to launch, so hybrid systems offer paths.
The choice depends on a balance of speed, risk, and cost, bringing us to the mission profile.
This brings us to the debate of conjunction versus opposition mission profiles, which use efficient, slow trajectories. Conjunction missions use efficient, slow trajectories, forcing crews to stay on Mars for 500 days waiting. Opposition missions burn more fuel to force a faster return, cutting the total time to 2 years.
They require shorter surface stays, reducing radiation risks. But the longer conjunction stays yield more science data.
NASA is weighing both, but regardless of the path, the flight is grueling with months of microgravity.
6 to 9 months of microgravity will rot muscles and bones, despite exercise depleting the crew physically. By the time they hit the Martian atmosphere, the crew will be physically depleted, yet must handle.
They must handle high G entry and set up a base in 38% gravity immediately.
This is why rotating artificial gravity ships are being considered, using centrifugal force to keep crews strong.
Finally, after surviving the flight, the construction, and the isolation, comes the ultimate hurdle, which is returning.
The ascent vehicle must launch from Mars and dock with the Earth return vehicle in orbit flawlessly.
There is no mechanic to call, so if the rendezvous fails, they are stranded forever, without hope.
Once aboard the return ship, they face another 9 months of deep space travel, finally homeward bound.
But even landing on Earth is not the end, because after years, their bodies will struggle badly.
After years in low gravity, their bodies will struggle to handle Earth's weight, just like Apollo crews.
Apollo crews needed help walking after just 2 weeks, and so Mars veterans will face a rehabilitation marathon.